Sichuan, in the southwest of inland China. From the highlands in the west to the Sichuan Basin and the Chengdu Plain in the east, this province has it all. An abundant land of contrasts, guarded by mountains. Our journey starts from the Northwest Plateau. From there, we go deep into the province's high alpine, where we'll get an unrivaled view of this fairyland of mountains and gorges. Then it's over the snow-capped mountains to take a look at the man-made marvel of the ancient world. Songpan Plateau in northwestern Sichuan, sometimes known as the Zoiga Prairie. Early morning, the Yellow River, rising in the Bayanhar Mountains, passes through here. As it meets even colder air on the ground, fog rises from the surface of the young river. From the air, it's almost as if a great dragon of cloud is snaking its way across the landscape. Tongkua town, to the west of Zoiga, is a settlement of Tibetan herdsmen. In the Tibetan language, Zoiga means the place yaks like. The Yellow River, running all the way eastward, turns to the north in this place, the first of many bends it will take before it meets the sea. "65 million years ago, the Indian and Eurasian landmasses plowed into each other. The result of this slow-motion geological pileup was one of the wonders of the natural world. A group of mountain chains about 700 kilometers wide, including the Himalayas. 140 years ago, appointed by the Qing government, surveyor Huang Maotai left Chengdu for India. On his way, he encountered an immense obstacle, these mountains. So he named them Hung Duan, literally, the blocking mountains. On the eastern shoulder of the Hengduan Mountains stands Mount Shi, marking the eastern boundary of China's highland glacial zone. On the northern side of Mount Shi is world-renowned natural heritage site, Huanglong. This is a world-class limestone landscape. Huanglong means golden dragon in Chinese, which is just what this 1,300-meter-long natural limestone beach looks like from above. It certainly lives up to its name. Landscapes like this are created when underground water rich in calcium carbonate flows out of the Earth's surface and evaporates, generating calcium carbonate deposits, which eventually become limestone. In Huanglong, there are more than 5,000 limestone pools, looking like numerous open-air karst caves. "100 kilometers to the north of Huanglong is a valley famous throughout the country. Jiuzhaigo is so called because of the 9 Tibetan villages in the valley. Stretching for 49 kilometers, the valley is a place of constant change. Here in the twinkle of an eye, it can turn from a snow-covered winter wonderland to a place of vibrant colors. Chonghai Lake is 5 kilometers long and constantly replenished by melting snow and rainfall. The local Tibetans call it the lake that's never full and never empty. Wutai Chu Lake is the smallest lake in Jiuzhaigou. Because of the different shades of the plants that make their home in and around the lake, depending on the season, time of day, or even just your vantage point, it's never quite the same. More of a kaleidoscope of shifting colors than an average lake. Trees here live a long time too. That's because of the calcium carbonate, creating a white shell that provides years of protection against decay. People often say, one would not visit other waters after returning from Jiuzhaigou. For locals, water is really the heart and soul of this valley. The north-south layout of the Hengduan Mountains not only channels warm and moist air from the Indian Ocean northward, but also holds back air currents from the Pacific Ocean blowing in from the east. One reason why this valley glitters with lakes. To the west of the Minshan Mountains, many streams converge, forming the Minjiang River, a tributary of the Yangtze. Following the Minjiang River southward down the valley, we get to the Longmen Mountains. Over the mountains lies the Chengdu Plain. Duzhongyan is a masterpiece of an ancient irrigation system built by Governor Li Bing and his son more than 2,200 years ago. Before then, when the Minjiang River was in flood, vast quantities of water were prevented from flowing west by Yulei Mountain, spilling out east onto the populous Chengdu Plain, often resulting in severe flooding. Digging through Yulei Mountain was the first task that Li Bing's ancient engineers had to tackle. After lighting huge fires against the rocks, Li Bing's men splashed them with water, causing the red-hot rocks to crack, making it easier for them to chip away this vast obstacle. This is another ingenious feature of Li Bing's system. A dike that divides the course of the river into two. Dredged deep on one side, the new course of the river is channeled through Baopingkao to provide irrigation on the other side. Meanwhile, the old course of the river acts as a conduit for excess water to prevent flooding. The efforts of Li Bing and his son in creating Duzhongyan are still commemorated today. It's largely thanks to this irrigation system, still in service more than 2,000 years after it was begun, that the Chengdu Plain developed into a land of abundance. A place, as the people say, where the waters are tamed and drought and hunger are strangers. Hopping over the Longchen Mountains, we take a closer look at this fabled land of abundance, the Chengdu Plain. Venturing into the depths of Chengdu, a city as vibrant as its hot and spicy cuisine. If we see the Hengduan Mountains as a high wall guarding the west of the Chengdu Plain, then the Longchen Mountains can be said to be a fence sitting on the eastern side of the plain. Together, these two ranges are the natural boundary between the low-lying Chengdu Plain and the hilly regions of the Sichuan Basin. Flying westward from here, unfolding beneath us, is the Chengdu Plain, the land of abundance. Chengdu can trace its origins back 3,000 years. Drawn in by many waterways, the water of the Minjiang River coming from Duzhongyan not only irrigates Chengdu Plain, but also fills the watercourses of downtown Chengdu. The Jinjiang River, nowadays surrounded by high buildings, was once Chengdu's moat, its last line of defense against invaders in times of turmoil. Times have changed. Nowadays, this green corridor is a place where people can come to get away from the pressures of life, a sanctuary, an oasis of calm in a bustling city. The broad and narrow alley, ancient streets of the Qing dynasty, in the bustling downtown area. This is the place to get the real taste of Chengdu. 300 years ago, a Qing dynasty military garrison was established in these alleyways, later becoming home to the descendants of the soldiers and officials stationed here, as well as the tradesmen and porters who served them. With its gray bricks and black tiles, this network of tightly knit alleys is now one of Chengdu's most famous historical and cultural districts. Sichuan cuisine is unbelievably diverse, but basically falls into three major categories. There's a pungent variety, a spicy one, and another that combines salty, fresh, sour, and sweet flavors. Overall, there are some 24 frequently used flavors, and meals should combine dishes with mutually complementary flavors. Sichuan also has its own variety of Chinese opera. Like the province's cuisine, it's vibrant, diverse, and colorful. Using techniques like face changing, performers can move from happiness, anger, sorrow, and delight in scarcely the blink of an eye. Not forgetting another technique that definitely seems inspired by the province's cuisine, fire breathing. People's Park in the city center was once called Shaosheng Park and has a history of 100 years. Chewing the fat, chewing the rag, and shooting the breeze, call it what you will. There were lots of expressions for chatting. However you say it, whatever words you use to describe it, it's certainly something that the people like to do in People's Park. Here with just a cup of tea and a bamboo chair, People can kick back and while away the whole day talking about nothing in particular. What a place. For most of its history, Chengdu has been a haven. In 759, to get away from the An Lushan rebellion, 47-year-old Du Fu, stranded in Chengdu, put up a thatched cottage on the bank of Wanhua Stream and stayed there for 3 years and 9 months. How I wish I could have 10,000 houses to provide shelter for all who need it, are lines from one of his famous poems. Just as Chengdu had given him sanctuary, so he yearned to be able to give others safety and security. The concrete jungle before us is the emerging district next to downtown Chengdu, the Chengdu High-Tech Industrial Development Zone. Here were the people of old Chengdu bred silkworms and went fishing and hunting from the comfort and safety of the environmentally friendly buildings. The people of modern-day Chengdu are gathering wisdom, ready for the start of a new era. Starting from the city center, going north alongside the Jinjiang River, we arrive at the home of a very famous variety of chili sauce, Pishen bean paste. It's a fantastic combination of chili and broad beans, and is regarded as one of the cornerstones of modern Sichuan cuisine, which is popular around the world. So demand for this pungent sauce is never-ending. However, high-quality bean paste still needs to be fermented for at least 3 years. To qualify as premium bean paste, it must be fermented for no less than 8 years. Leaving Chengdu, we pay a visit to a land affected by the Sichuan earthquake 10 years ago to see how it has recovered from that trauma. We'll also experience one of Sichuan's very special narrow paths. From there, we visit an old haunt of the Three Kingdoms to discover the source of the prosperity of the Han Dynasty. On the way from Chengdu to Jiuzhaigou, there's a town called Yingshou. According to legend, its name derives from Yu the Great, ancient China's legendary flood tamer. Sadly, the association with Yu the Great couldn't save it from another natural disaster. In 2008, Yingshou became the epicenter of the Sichuan earthquake. In commemoration of the dreadful events of that day, Shenkao Middle School has been left in ruins. Unlike the rest of the town, thanks to a far-sighted recovery effort, Yingshou is well and truly alive and kicking, a brand new town rising out of the ashes of disaster. The new Beichuan County, reconstructed after the earthquake, is situated on the bank of the Ancheng River. The new Beichuan High School was the first project to get underway during the recovery effort. People drove an 8-meter-long pile every 1.8 meters, making the school the most substantial building in the county. Today, the diligent and hardworking students of the school have become the symbol of Beichuan's rebirth. At the northern side of the Sichuan Basin, there's a steep mountain slope. In ancient times, the only way of getting through the mountains was a narrow path deemed so difficult that people used to say that it was easier to climb up to heaven. Jianmen Pass is one of the most important passes on the narrow path. One man guarding the pass, so the saying goes, can stop an army of 10,000. Behind the pass is the Jinyo Path, the most important of the three paths. The narrow path was made during the Warring States period, more than 2,500 years ago. A lot of history has passed up and down this path. In December 2017, the Xi'an-Chengdu high-speed railway opened. In ancient times, it used to take people a month to get to Xi'an from Chengdu. Today, thanks to this railway, it takes just 3 hours to cover the 800-kilometer distance to China's ancient capital. Flying southward from Jianmen Pass, we come to Longzhong, an ancient town on the banks of the Jialing River. Here in Jialing's U-Bend sits Longzhong, an ancient town with a history of more than 2,300 years. Zhongfei, general of the Shu Kingdom, which was one of the three kingdoms, was once stationed here. Today in Longzhong ancient town, in addition to the famous Zhongfei Temple, we can also see thousands of ancient courtyards and streets, built in a mixture of Tang and Song dynasty styles, as well as later Ming and Qing style structures. Chushen County is located in eastern Sichuan. In ancient times, it was one of the settlements of the Tang ethnic group. Tradition has it that during the Shang and Zhou dynasties, the people of the Tang helped King Wu defeat the forces of the Shang by making a bit of a song and dance about it, paving the way for a brand new dynasty, the Zhou. In the Han and Jin dynasties, elaborate funerals were a must for the nobility. These elaborate funerals led to the development of a peculiar architecture form found all over Sichuan, the jia. Developed from watchtowers, these jias constitute the earliest above-ground structures surviving in China. You can find jias all over China, but a quarter of the total are to be found in one single county in Sichuan, Chushen. Alongside the ancient path between Chengdu and Chongqing are scattered more than 100,000 stone statues. The Anyue grottos started in the Eastern Han Dynasty, reaching their height in the Sui and Tang dynasties, lasting through the Ming and Qing dynasties until the Republican era. One thing above all sums up the Anyue grottos, a Song dynasty statue of Guanyin, the goddess of mercy, with her long and thin drooping eyes, her gently closed red lips, her delicate posture. It's little wonder she's become such an iconic figure, inspiring such affection and devotion. Next, it's time to make for the sea, a green one such as you've never seen before. Visit the world's largest Maitreya Buddha on the banks of the Minjiang River before going up into the clouds to touch the golden peaks of some truly spectacular mountains. Of course, Sichuan is nowhere near the coast, but it's got a sea all the same, a green sea of bamboo. This bamboo sea is located in southwestern Sichuan, carpeting over 500 peaks in gorgeous green. Of the 428 species of bamboo, this one grows fastest, going from shoot to fully fledged bamboo in just 40 days. 4 years later, it's big enough and strong enough to build with, a superb mountainside renewable resource. Flying northward, we arrive in Yibin, the city at the source of the Yangtze. Looking to the east, we spy Huazhongmen's scenic resort. The yellowish water on the left is the Minjiang River, and the greenish one on the right is Jinsha River. According to legend, Nuajia in the Chinese mythology was born in Chentong Pass near Yibin. Huazhongmen was where he fought with the third son of the Dragon King. Luoshan is another place where mighty rivers converge. Blocked by Ling'un Mountain, this is where the Qingyi and the Dadu merge and the Minjiang River bends. Time was when this was an extremely treacherous stretch of river, a place where boats were dashed to pieces and countless people lost their lives. More than 1,000 years ago, people spent 90 years sculpting this immense statue of Maitreya on Ling'un Mountain. The giant Buddha has 6-meter-long ears, a 3.2-meter-long nose, with his left eye being 2.46 meters, and the right one 2.45 meters. Each coil of his hair is as large as a round table. It was not until 2001, when the head of the Buddha was being repaired, that they counted the number of coils, 1,051 altogether. About 40 kilometers to the west of Luoshan is Mount Uemei. Wanfoading Peak stands at 3,099 meters above sea level, the highest peak in Mount Uemei. The Jinding Peak behind it is its second highest summit. Right at the top sits the 8-meter-tall bronze hall of the Huazong Temple, a spectacular sight whose radiance penetrates all the way to the horizon. "30 million years ago, the strata of Mount Uemei folded, fracturing and lifting. 3 million years ago, the main body of the mountain rose dramatically, eventually, after thousands of years of erosion, resulting in an altitude difference of more than 2,600 meters from the Uemei Plain. Heading north from Mount Uemei, we'll encounter Mount Qingcheng, one of the 4 famous Taoist peaks. In 143, Zhang Daoling came here, building a simple house to live in and beginning to preach, in the process helping to develop Taoist systematic theology. Today, there are still dozens of Taoist temples up in these mountains. It's hard to think of a better place than these mountains to ponder the sublime mysteries of existence. As you find out when you get to Laojun Pagoda on top of the peak and watch the breathtaking panorama from Mount Qingcheng unfold beneath you. Chengdu, the starting point of the ancient Silk Road in South China. Next, we'll visit an important old Silk Road town to see how the transformation of a deep chasm into a thoroughfare changed the economic fortunes of the region. Then on to the Daliang Mountains for another taste of highland beauty and a party on down up in the clouds. From the Han Dynasty, possibly earlier, there was an old trade route between Chengdu and India, the Southern Silk Road. Chongli ancient town, to the west of Yahan, grew up around a post house on this road. Heading southward alongside these rugged mountain paths, people would make for Yunnan, eventually going all the way to India. Fortunately, transportation is a lot easier nowadays, thanks to the newly opened Yashi Highway, rapidly opening up the previously inaccessible Hengduan Mountains. Making it possible for people to drive between Yunnan and Sichuan has been an almighty challenge. In order to get across 12 seismic fault zones and countless rivers, there are no less than 270 bridges on this 240-kilometer stretch of highway, more than one for every kilometer. Continue southward, we arrive at Ganhaizi and encounter a stretch of road that is about as steep as it is possible for a road to be. 4 kilometers long, the road needs to climb upward for 450 meters, rising about 150 meters for every kilometer traveled. If this road is difficult to drive up, it's even harder to build. In order to tackle this world-class engineering challenge, civil engineers dug 2 spiral tunnels vertically so as to allow the road to spiral upwards through tunnels, smoothing out the gradient by extending the distance of the road. Yashi Highway connects to the home of China's Yi people, the Daliang Mountains. In this cold alpine region, the annual average temperature is just 10 degrees Celsius. With some ridges as high as 4,000 meters above sea level, 3,500 meters higher than some of the region's deepest valleys. Making a living here has always been a challenge, hence the endless terraced fields built by generation after generation of Yi people, spreading out in all directions along the valley. Lu'an wetland in Butuo County is unique. This is the only place in Sichuan where black storks spend the winter. After August, this place will become a paradise for green-winged teals. The tiny green-winged teal can fly as fast as 120 kilometers per hour, almost supersonic for a bird. In the middle of the Daliang Mountains stands Lower Ji Mountain with its hundreds of green peaks. There are over 30 glacial lakes scattered throughout these mountain valleys. Rudu Di Sa, at the foot of Loa Ji Mountain, is where the Yi people's Firebrand Festival originated. When it's the Firebrand Festival, people get together, light a bonfire, and hold a carnival that lasts 3 days and 3 nights. The highlight of the day is a very special beauty pageant. The judges, all village elders, choose the winner. But it's not just beauty that counts in this contest. The winner should be an all-around role model for other girls. During the grand traditional festival, singing and dancing often continues late into the night. Come the third day, it's time for the highlight of the festival, sending the fire god back. When night falls, everyone holds a torch in their hand and go to the appointed place to express their determination to withstand natural disasters with their last ceremony. Now for the final leg of our journey into Sichuan. We'll kick off in western Sichuan, in an old lamasery, long famed for printing. Then it's on to a mountain whose head is literally stuck in the clouds. Next we'll rendezvous vows with a miraculous Sichuan-Tibet highway, gateway to the snowy peaks of the roof of the world. De Sutra Printing House was built in 1792. With a history of 289 years, it's the largest lamasery devoted to printing Tibetan language scriptures in China. The printing technique used here in the lamasery is one of the oldest known to man, woodblock printing. The printing boards are made of maple wood, and the paper is made of a distinctive species of wild grass. Thick, flexible, and durable, this paper is ideal for printing books made to last. What's more, it contains natural insect repellents and preservatives, guaranteed to keep bookworms and decay at bay. Heading east from Doge, we'll visit Achong village in Taoping Township, situated in the valley to the east of the Hengduan Mountains. These stone-piled watchtowers have a history of more than 1,000 years. There are also hidden paths, twisting and turning in all directions within the village. This really is the place to be if you really want to feel history up close. Flying south, we encounter 4 snowy peaks in close proximity to each other. This is the so-called Mount Segunyong. The highest of these 4 snowy peaks towers at an amazing altitude of 6,250 meters above sea level. It's affectionately known as Yao Mei Peak. While the southern slope of Yao Mei Peak is covered in ice, the western and northern slopes are steep rocks several hundred meters high. Not far away from Yao Mei Peak is Loatoa Peak. In the saddle between the two peaks, there sets a huge glacial plain. It's a popular place for beginner mountain climbers to practice. Notice the abyss behind the glacial plain? Let's hope the climbers don't either. To the east side of Mount Segunyong is the famous panda conservation area, Wulong. In the 1980s, the Chinese scientists began their systematic research into the pandas living here. In the nursery, the baby pandas follow their keepers everywhere. It's that classic panda game, hold the keeper's leg. In order to get them ready to return to the wild, young pandas are trained to avoid human beings before they are released from the breeding station. That's why we can only see the mother panda in our camera. Hopefully this program marks a great leap forward in the efforts of researchers and conservationists to improve the local panda population. As of April 2018, 8 young pandas have been released, 7 of which managed to survive somewhere out there in the wild. Continuing our flight southward from Wulong, we get to Mount Arlong. Standing at an altitude of more than 4,000 meters, this is the first alpine peak people see when entering the Hongduan Mountains from Chengdu via National Highway 318. Though the highway tunnel passing through Mount Arlong was completed and open to traffic at the end of 2001, the 38 hairpin bends up the steep slope are still a prominent landmark on the Sichuan Tibet Highway. Going further south, we see 145 snow-capped peaks towering over the landscape, like a dreamlike cluster of immense horns. At a height of 7,556 meters, the highest peak in the group is Mount Gongga. The highest point in the whole of the Hongduan Mountains. It's rightfully dubbed Sichuan's King of Mountains. In the Tibetan language, the word Gongga refers to a snow mountain. Something like this mountain, with its giant cone-shaped main peak, a place where glaciers form. Presently, 74 mature glaciers extend downward from here. The Hai Loago Glacier in the east extends all the way down to an altitude of 2,850 meters, making it the lowest glacier in the whole of Asia. Where the glaciers meet rock, conditions are ideal for a rare form of algae. The result is this fantastic beach of red stones. Lacking roots, the only way they can survive is by penetrating the very stone of Gongga himself. Once the red stones are taken out of the mountain, the algae on them die and fade. Flying westward across Yalong River, we arrive at Nidun Village in Daocheng County, a land of idyllic beauty that draws hundreds of thousands of visitors a year. The number of permanent residents here is less than 30,000, far outnumbered by the visitors who flock here to get a taste of its legendary beauty. Golden meadows, gorgeous forests, and green limpid lakes. This is a place that seems to have distilled all that is the most beautiful about the Hongduan Mountains. Set at an altitude of 3,880 meters, Chonggu Temple really could claim to be a gateway to heaven. Especially when you look behind the gate, a truly magnificent snow-capped peak, Chenrezig. There are 3 snow peaks in Nidun, each one standing quite close to the other. With an altitude of 6,032 meters, the highest peak of the 3 is called Chenrezig. Meanwhile, the stainless white peak of Jianpeiyang cuts a more militant figure, faintly resembling a sharp sword. Giant and broad, Chanadorji has tooth-like ridges. All 3 snow-capped peaks, standing tall and proud, keeping guard over a province that, with its soaring mountains, green forests, and abundant fertile plain, has it all. A wonderland and fairyland, all rolled into one.